The credits at the beginning of the movie tell us that Cuba has lived under a communist regime since 1959 and is under a harsh US embargo. Many Cubans fled the country and settled in Miami, where they fought for the liberation of Cuba. The movie is based on real events. The action shifts to Cuba in 1990, where we meet René Gonzalez. After having breakfast, he says goodbye to his wife Olga and daughter Irma. A man works as a pilot on an airplane for skydivers. However, he breaks the sensors in the control room for some reason and flies away on an old airplane. Interior Ministry officials tell Olga that René hijacked the plane and is now in Florida. Meanwhile, the man gives an interview and tells that he was forced to escape by scarcity and the political system. Upset, Olga calls her husband's brother Roberto and asks him to come over. Other opponents of regime change in Cuba help René to settle down, providing him with a place to live and a job. In the evening, the man looks sadly at the picture of Olga and Irma, feeling homesick for his family. The next day, while working, René meets José Basulto, who is considered an enemy of the people and a threat to the regime in Cuba. The man reveals that he has created the Salvation Union for Cuban refugees. José offers René to join the organization, as they have enough planes for rescue missions, but, alas, no pilots. The man realizes that he is ready to fight and help people, and accepts the offer of his new acquaintance. During one of the flights, José says that their organization is also set up for political struggle, and he drops leaflets with revolutionary slogans from the plane. René writes letters to Olga and says that he understands the woman's resentment, but asks her to understand his reasons for such an act. The wife replies that she is not angry and wishes the man good luck in life, but now he will be without her. Life in Cuba becomes an ordeal for Olga after René's departure. Meanwhile, Juan Pablo Roque escapes from Cuba using a scuba suit and swims to a US military base. The man is interrogated there, and it turns out that he is a combat veteran and a fighter pilot. Juan decided to flee because his hope for the end of the regime in Cuba after the collapse of the USSR did not materialize. The man is released, and he comes to his cousin in Miami. After the mass, Juan meets Ana Margarita Martinez. The heroes spend a wonderful evening together. However, the girl is a little nervous because her ex-husband lives with her for the time being, and he is very jealous and violent. After a while, Juan meets José, and he says that he came to the US to fight the regime. Basulto offers the pilot to join his elite kamikaze squad, but warns him that the job is not easy. Juan agrees and coordinates arms shipments to Cuba and, in the course of his work, gets to know René. At this time, Olga works hard and, returning home, gathers her husband's things and gives them to Roberto. The woman admits that it is hard for her now to deceive her daughter and tell her that her father is not a criminal. On another flight, René receives strange boxes in Honduras. Meanwhile, Juan and Ana start living together and invite a friend over for dinner. René tells his buddy that he was most likely involved in transporting illegal substances tonight. Juan suggests that the man contact his cousin, who works for the big people. During the meeting, the FBI representative offers René to become their informant and receive good money for it. The man agrees and surrenders to the organization, the ringleader of the supply of illegal substances from Honduras. The next day, the officers make an arrest and seizure. However, René refuses to cooperate further. Ana begins to suspect Juan of illegal activities because he earns much more than he should, working only for the rescue organization. The man says he didn't come to Miami to be a loser, and there's a lot the girl doesn't know about him. However, he doesn't deal in illegal substances. Meanwhile, René is coordinating a mission to take over and destroy part of Cuba. Afterwards, the man talks to José and says that he joined the organization to save lives, not to support violence. René also says that he has received a letter from Elena agreeing to come, but that he needs Basulto to facilitate it using his connections. The action moves to the day of Ana and Juan's wedding. Many paparazzi are present at the celebration, and after the wedding the happy couple go to the estate. Also present at the celebration is Jorge Mascanosa, a known opponent of Cuban politics and the main opposition figure considered to be the new president. The newlyweds are photographed with the politician and then retire back to the busier areas. The celebration continues, with guests partying and dancing. Rene says that he is happy for his friend, but he is sorry that Olga is not around. At night, the guests go to the club to have fun. Meanwhile, Olga finishes her hard work and wants to quit her job to go to Miami for the sake of her daughter's well-being. However, the woman learns that she brought the wrong document, and she needs to get papers from the Ministry of Light Industry to leave. In the morning, Rene calls his wife, and Olga says that in fact the problem is not in some paper, but in him. Suddenly it turns out that the man is being followed. When Rene leaves, unknown assailants break into his home and plant bugs and wiretaps. The action moves back 4 years to the Cuban State Security Service. Gerardo Hernandez must move to Miami under the assumed name of Manuel Viramontes and know all the facts of their new biography so as not to arouse any suspicion. A man has dinner with his lover Adriana and says he has to go away for a couple months. At home, the girl cries and says that she had hoped Gerardo would finish his education in Cuba. Then the man whispers that he is ready to explain everything to the girl, but only if she promises to keep it a terrible secret. Gerardo explains that he has been assigned to infiltrate suspicious organizations in Florida for the purpose of espionage. We further learn that Rene got to Miami in 1990, Manuel in 1991, and Juan in 1992. The rest of the agents arrived during 1992. First, Lilo and Linda Hernandez, their assignment was to infiltrate the most aggressive group. The next agent, Antonio Guerrero, was first a salsa teacher and then became a mechanic at a secure U.S. facility. Another agent is Ramon Labanino. His job is to keep tabs on Luis Posada Carriles. By the end of 1992, the spy network was operating at full capacity. The agents have no contact with each other, but only transmit documents to Viramontes through an intermediary. Every 2 weeks, the agents transmit information on a floppy disk, transmitting messages via pager. Manuel transmits the information he receives through a shortwave radio. If it is too voluminous, the supervisor encrypts it and transmits it by regular mail. During its work, the organization has been able to prevent more than 20 attacks and arrest 30 criminals. In the present day, Olga learns from Manuel that her husband is not a criminal, but a secret agent who has saved many lives. The man warns that Irma must not be told about this under any circumstances. Olga is shocked and cries, saying that all these years she thought Rene was a traitor. Meanwhile, Anna continues to suspect her husband and quarrels with him, but Juan promises that everything will be all right. The next day, the man met with Manuel and lied that he had injured his arm in the shower, making him unable to fly. Meanwhile, in Cuba, a group of people emerges, demanding a peaceful transition to democracy. However, Castro's decision is rather cruel. All opponents are taken into custody. The next day in Miami, Jose speaks to journalists and says that their organization is going to scatter over Havana leaflets supporting the revolt of the Democrats. Before the flight, the pilots say a common prayer and set off. Cuban fighter planes appear near them, but Jose is sure that they are only trying to intimidate them. However, his prediction does not come true, and one of the planes fails, followed by the second. Jose realizes that they are being treated ruthlessly and there will be no mercy. Meanwhile, Anna tries to call Juan and finally hears the phone ringing. However, it turns out that Rene is calling. He is happy that Juan is not on assignment and asks the girl to turn on the TV. Waking up in the morning, Anna sees a bunch of paparazzi and then Juan speaking on TV, who has returned to Cuba. The man says he has no one to miss in the States, and the politics of pseudo-humanitarian organizations have finished him off. Meanwhile, Olga and Irma finally meet with Rene. After dinner, the woman says that she has carried a lot of heartache inside her all this time. Even now that she has realized Rene's motives, she finds it difficult to be calm and loving with him again. However, despite everything, the woman has come to see her husband, but she needs time to forgive him. The next day, Rene meets with Manuel and tells him that they need to somehow infiltrate Posada Carriles' network. One of his agents offers the poor young man a good job to plant a dangerous device on the beach or near a tourist spot to cause the collapse of the Cuban economy and the overthrow of Castro. Raul agrees, and at 11:25 he gets on the grounds of one of the hotels. At 11:45 he plants the device in a second establishment, and at 11:53 he gets into a third. At 12 o'clock, all 3 devices are triggered. The young man who got into a cab is stopped by the police, but then released. Returning to the room, the hero learns over the phone that the money for the deed was left to him in an envelope in Havana. Raul arrives at the hotel, but there is no number or envelope in his name. On the way out of the establishment, the hero is detained and told that they are aware of his crime. Meanwhile, in Miami, Renee informs Manuel of an impending attack on the Cubans on the Esperanto boat. The boss suggests reporting it to the FBI to expose the network in which Jose is working under the guise of humanitarian aid. Olga sits down at the table with the men and shares with Manuel the happy news that she is expecting a baby. Another boat of the organization with weapons is detained at sea. An FBI delegation arrives in Cuba and reports that they suspect the rescue organization of having ties to terrorists, specifically Luis Posada Carriles. Meanwhile, a man gives an interview and says that there is a network of Cuban spies in Miami who are trying their best to undermine Jose's movement. After a while, Olga works at an English learning company and raises 2 daughters with Renee. Suddenly, the FBI bursts into the happy family's apartment. In addition to Renee, Manuel and the other 10 members of the spy organization are also captured. Olga is threatened that her youngest daughter is an American citizen, but she herself and Irma could be deported at any moment. 2 weeks later, Olga visits Renee and tells him that her boss has kept her job and she is trying to cope with the difficulties. The man says that 5 of the detainees agreed to tell the truth about the organization in order to have their sentences reduced. A year later, Olga sees Renee in cell again, and he informs her that he refused to cooperate with the special services. The woman decides to leave her youngest daughter to her grandmother. Titles report that Olga was deported from America, but reunited with her daughters and advocated for Renee's release. The man spent 12 years in prison. Manuel was sentenced to life imprisonment, but was released after 15 years. Ana sued the Cuban government for $27 million, but has only received $200,000 so far. Juan ran into financial difficulties and sold his expensive watch. Raul received a sentence of 30 years and is still not out. Carriles was never brought to trial for the hotel situation. This is the end of the movie. Thank you all for watching this video to the end. Give this video a like. Write in the comments what you think about this movie, and see you in new videos.